Hello, everyone, and welcome to Good Journeys Tarot. I'm Rosemary, and today I am doing a VR to Kelly Bear, who recently updated her top 5 tarot decks she can't live without. So I'm going to share with you the 5 that I can't live without. The first one is the Golden Tarot by Liz Dean. The main reason that this deck is on my list is it was my first tarot deck. And honestly, when I first got it, I had to put it down and find another deck because I could not read the pips. So once I learned the tarot better, I went back to it because I did love the imagery on it, the style of it. It was a very Renaissance kind of feel to me that I really liked, and it is based on some older decks. There's so much that I liked about it that I really wanted to be able to work with it, and now that I understand the tarot, I can read with the pips, which are beautiful in themselves. It's just that when you're a beginner, there's nothing to say, okay, in this image, give me any meaning. So this would definitely be on my list, mainly because it was my first deck, and I love the imagery and the colors, and now that I know my pips, I can work with it. The second one is going to be the Centennial RWS, because I would want an RWS deck with me, and right now, this is probably my favorite RWS deck. I have other decks where I like the imagery coloration better, but this is the best cardstock by far of any of the RWS decks, and that's why I would choose this one over the others. So that would be my second deck. My third deck would be the Obito Tarot. The Obito Tarot, to me, is one of those decks that feels less out of date, while at the same time not really being specific to a time frame. So I feel like I could read it at any time. The images are vibrant and beautiful and give the same meaning to the cards that I have always understood them to be. And some of them are just so gorgeous compared to even the RWS. Like the Three of Swords, this has to be my favorite Three of Swords of all time. The pages in this deck are my favorite pages anywhere. I think they just really capture the feeling that I get when I think of the pages. They're youthful and they really fit their suit. So this would be one that I would definitely want to take with me. Judgment card's probably the only one that I struggle with a little bit in this deck. But once you read her explanation about rising from the blanket and, accepting, responsibility for your own choices and whatnot, it makes a little bit more sense. But these are definitely going to be on my list as one of those that I can't live without. The Deck of the Bastard will also be one of those that I can't live without. Mainly because the imagery is very traditional, but it's a combination of different decks. And I like the use of coins on the pips instead of pentacles, even though they are the RWS images. And I really love the choices that were made to pull in the major arcana and the aces and even the court cards from other decks. This particular deck for me, because it does have keywords, it's the only one that is in my favorites that has keywords, and because it is waterproof, is definitely one that I couldn't live without. I'd have to have it in my collection for sure. The last deck is the Spirit Keeper's Tarot Vitruvian edition. Now, I have the first edition of this deck, and I found that I could do really deep readings with it. I could do shadow work with it, but it wasn't something I could use on a regular basis. I mean, I might be able to pull it out every 2 to 3 weeks. And I was really hesitant to get this deck because I wasn't a fan of the imagery as I saw it online, and of some of the changes that were made to the deck, as well as the coloration. But I didn't want to be without my Spirit Keeper's Tarot, so I went ahead and ordered a copy of it since I can't get a copy of the first edition. And I really just have fallen in love with this deck. I still have a little bit of concern with the Emperor card. I feel like it doesn't fit with the rest of the cards in the deck, but the deck is beautiful, and it's much easier to work with than the original deck, which I think that was one of her goals, was to make it more accessible. And there's that Emperor. I just think the art style just seems different than the other cards in the deck. And that could be because of practice, but that's my own personal opinion. But this is an important deck for me because this is what I use for myself, for my spiritual journeys, and for my personal development. I don't use this deck with anyone else. It's one that I only use for myself. I would like to add a note, which a lot of people do, and that's that, it can be hard to narrow things down to 5. I would say that I actually struggled a little bit because I wanted very much to include a deck that I could read for others, like the Deck of the Bastard. I wanted to include something that was some non-traditional, like the Saucer Obito. I wanted to bring an RWS deck. I definitely wanted to include the one that I'm using in my own spiritual journey at the moment. But that 5th one, I went back and forth because I have a deck, the Wildwood Tarot, that I use mainly when I'm working with ancestors, and I couldn't decide between it and the Golden Tarot, which was my first deck. And ultimately, I went with this deck because I read with it more often than the Wildwood. Because I only use the Wildwood at Sabbats when I'm working with my ancestors, I only pull it out 3 or 4 times a year. Whereas this one, I pull it out probably once a month to do a reading for myself or for someone else. It just feels right at certain times. Well, thank you for watching this video. Again, if you want to check out Kelly Bear's update to her 5 decks she can't live without, I'll post that link in the box below. Until next time, good journeys.